Hey, welcome to today's video. I'm Rick Chapo with DMCAagentservice.com. So today we're looking at the DMCA pros and cons, and we're just going to fly through this, but I know there are a lot of people who tend to look at the issue from either the pro or the con side, and it's important to make sure you balance things. So we're talking about Section 512C. This is the Safe Harbor Immunity section for online businesses. Basically what it says is a website or app cannot be held liable for copyright infringement for content uploaded by users. So if you have an account with Facebook and you upload something to Facebook, to your page that somebody claims is infringing on their copyright, Facebook cannot be held liable, but you can. Now Facebook and any site or app has to follow a particular compliance process, but as long as they do that, they have immunity. And the question then becomes, okay, well, is all this good or bad? So let's take a look. The pros. So the important thing to understand about the DMCA, as outraged as you may get or as much as you may support it, is that the internet would look very different without it, certainly in the United States. And the biggest issue would probably be UGC sites. UGC stands for user-generated content sites. So there's just sites like Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Snap, whatever the latest social media sites. It's any kind of site or app where users are uploading content to it. Now, if the DMCA did not exist, well, if any of those users uploaded something alleged to be infringing, the copyright owner would sue that user, and they would also sue that site or that app, whatever it was. And as you can imagine, you're suddenly looking at a lot of lawsuits. Let me give you an example. As I'm recording this, it's April 2019. Google reported that in March of 2019, it received 75 million DMCA takedown notices. So even if 10% of those are valid, we're talking about 7.5 million lawsuits. So Facebook, they could probably handle it now because they have so much money, but if any company, any social media site, any user-generated site was in its first couple of years as a startup, they would just get annihilated. They would be in bankruptcy court, and it would be a disaster. So it would be very unlikely that we would have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, any of these kinds of companies. It would just be impossible. And so that's obviously a huge benefit of having the DMCA. Secondary benefit is it creates an inexpensive process for dealing with infringement online. Okay, if we didn't have the DMCA and you're a copyright holder and you saw somebody infringing on your copyright, your remedy would be to send them a cease and desist letter. Okay, well, that's coming from an attorney, so that's going to cost you. And if they don't reply if they don't comply with the cease and desist demand, then your only remedy is to sue them in court. And so how many lawsuits do you want to get involved in? And even if you'd love to pursue lawsuits, well, you're looking at filing, tons of them. Again, we go back to the Google example, 75 million complaints in 1 month. Now, a certain percentage of those are not going to be valid, but let's just say, you find your image has been swiped 20 times. Well, that's 20 different lawsuits you'd have to file, and that's not going to be fun. With the DMCA, we have the informal process, have the compliance process where you can serve a DMCA takedown notice on the host of the offending site or app, and that will usually remedy the situation. Is it perfect? No, and we'll cover that in cons, but it's much better than having to go file a lawsuit every time. See, the court system. If we didn't have the DMCA, and we were filing millions of copyright infringement claims every month in federal court and even in the state courts, the court system would grind to a halt. It would just be chaos, and we would all end up paying huge amounts of money in taxes to build giant new courthouses, pay judges, pay bailiffs, the whole infrastructure process. As an attorney, I fear to think what that would look like. But it would be a nasty, nasty mess. So there are definite positives and pros to the DMCA. Are there cons? Oh, yes, there are. This law is definitely, has some issues. For copyright holders, perhaps the biggest con is the whack-a-mole situation. Let's say you create something and it's popular or it has value. One of the things that's often going to happen is people will swipe it. and then they'll republish it and perhaps try to sell it somewhere. So let's say you develop a course, somebody pays to get access to it, they copy it all, and then they put it back together in essence, and they go onto another site and they upload it and then try and sell it for less than what you're selling it for. And so let's say you see that and you go, okay, and you go to that site and you submit a DMCA takedown notice, and the site says, oh, okay, and they take down the offending course. Well, the problem is 2 days later, the course pops up on another site where they're trying to sell it, and so on and so on and so on. And that can be incredibly frustrating, as you can imagine, thus the whack-a-mole designation. But also, copyright holders abuse the DMCA all the time. This tends to be more with larger companies, and basically what they do is they use automated software, and it's keyed to certain keywords. And if those keywords are found, they just start submitting DMCA takedown notices. And it's not fair. It often will hit fair use situations. It will often, really limit free speech. We just saw this literally yesterday. Stars, the TV channel or TV production group, they started serving DMCA takedown notices a little aggressively. So somebody had written an article, apparently, I think it was critical of one of the Stars TV shows, American Gods, something like that. And that's fair use. That's criticism. That is a standard acceptable use of a copyrighted material. You can't win an infringement claim on that. Stars submitted the DMCA takedown notice regardless. And then another company or another group, the Electronic Foundation, EFF, wrote an article about Stars abusing the DMCA, and Stars served a DMCA takedown notice on that article as well. And so, as you can imagine, that spread through social media, and Stars was taking a beating. And it appears somebody at Stars, woke up and realized what was going on, and so they've subsequently apologized, to their credit. But this happens a lot, and so it's abused by copyright holders as well. So how does all this play out? Is the system perfect? No, it's not. But I've yet to hear of any alternative that has any kind of balance to it that sounds any better. We just haven't seen anybody recommend an alternative to the DMCA that sounds like it would improve things. Now, could the DMCA be tweaked? Sure, of course. But again, once those tweaks start happening, you're never really sure what the actual outcome will be. While you may have a plan in mind, of course, the plans don't always come true and don't always produce the results you're expecting. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out. If you're interested in these kinds of issues, watch the EU right now. They just issued a new copyright directive, and they're going to try to make these large UGC sites filter out copyright infringing material. So basically, they're doing the opposite of the DMCA. And I think it's just an awful move because not so much because it hurts Facebook and Google and those groups. They have the money to deal with it. But the EU is giving those companies basically a monopoly in Europe, because it's going to be nigh impossible for a startup to break into those areas because they don't have the money. They don't have the money to develop the filtering system. They don't have the money to fight off all the lawsuits that are going to come. It's just going to be, a mess. So keep a watch on that. You can do a Google alert for EU copyright directive and see how that plays out. But anyways, so that's it for the DMCA pros and cons. Feel free to publish any questions you have below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching. Have yourself a good one.